I was very happy about that. Um, but I remember I was like, all right, let me look at the show times because my dad really wanted to go see it, and it was 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. at night, and I'm like, what about like 7, like a nice like evening showtime?
Yeah.
Oh God. But quickly, I'll give a quick rundown of this. This movie is about a surfer. Her name is Zephyr, right? That's how we pronounce it.
Zephyr.
Zephyr, my bad.
Named after the Spyro level, Zephyr. No, I'm kidding. I mean, that is
She
a Spyro level, but
like I said, she's a free-spirited surfer. Until one day she's abducted by a serial killer. She's held captive on his boat, where he basically takes tourists who are sent to him and feeds them to sharks and records them for his own pleasure. Maybe he gives it away, like he sells it online, a black market, whatever it may be. And she's trying to basically, throughout this whole film, she's held captive by him while they, are stuck out at sea on his boat. As he continues these, ritualistic feedings to the sharks and everything. And that's basically as much as I can tell you without spoiling too much, because, I do think, I'll start off with saying this, because I kind of told Dom how I felt about the movie in the green room. This movie, it's being marketed like it is a horror film. I've seen a lot of people drop horror around it and everything.
I can see that. It's not entirely wrong.
Yeah. I would consider this more of a thriller, a bottle thriller too, if anything, because you are stuck in one location basically the entire time. And it reminds me, it's very, especially with it being on a boat too, out at sea. Imagine Jaws, but instead of the shark being the only thing to worry about, there was a serial killer as well on there that you were worrying about too. And that serial killer, his name is Tucker, and he's played by Jai Courtney. And I gotta say, man, I am not a big Jai Courtney fan, but if there was one thing about that, what's up?
I'm not either. I think he's had some either just a bad agent, or he himself never bothered to maybe really push himself past the Marine, the soldier, the tough guy role, etc. For some people it works. Like Chris Pratt, he's been leaning into that a lot lately.
Yeah,
but he still has that charisma with his
comedy days that he can really pull people in with that.
Or even someone,
Jai Courtney never really had that.
Yeah, even someone like Hemsworth. It's like that guy can always be in a military movie. It's like he has a leading man look to him. He can do that. Jai Courtney for me, he never really captured my attention like that. He played Kyle Reese in one of the Terminator movies. I forgot what the name of it was.
Hot take, I like Terminator Genesis.
You like Terminator? I remember.
I'm not saying it's the GOAT, but it is.
Yeah.
I think it's good. I've only seen Salvation once, but I think it's tied with Salvation. So that's Terminator.
I can understand that.
2, 1, Salvation, Genesis. That's where I'm at.
Damn, 3 is that low for you, huh? Okay.
I
haven't seen 3 in so long either. I honestly can't remember it fully.
That's a little fluid, but either way, Genesis, not bottom of the barrel.
Anyways, going back to the movie that we're talking about, Dangerous Animals, though, I gotta say, out of all of Jai Courtney's roles that he's had throughout the year, or years, I should say, I think this is probably one of my favorite ones. Just because he just kind of plays it crazy the entire time. This role actually reminded me of a lot of why I did kind of like him as Captain Boomerang. I just thought the movie sucked, which is the first Suicide Squad with him in it.
Okay.
It was I could see this guy being a crazy lunatic. It's just this movie's doing nothing for him. Well, now you have a whole movie that basically revolves around him and Zephyr. I'm gonna keep butchering this name, man. Zephyr. No matter how many times they said it in the movie, I every time when I'm reading it and I'm looking at it, that's how I'm pronouncing it in my head. Who's played by Hasty Harrison, who's also really good.
live and online. It's Sleepless with Steve and the Movie Book Club with your host, Steve Pulaski.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Sleepless without Steve. It's me, Joe Viso, and Dominic Guanzon in the blue polo, of course. We're coming at you live right now with our review of 28 Years Later. You know how many times I messed up, like, telling people what movie I saw this weekend? I kept telling them I saw 28 Days Later, and they're like, oh, yeah, about time you saw that. But yeah, we're here. We're going to be reviewing that. That's all we have on the docket today. No surprise and/or Season 2 wrap-up review, because I haven't finished it yet. The Bears Season 4 starts tonight. That's why I'm wearing my beef shirt, but I promised myself that I won't watch that show or Squid Game Season 3 until I finish and/or Season 2, because I'm overdue on that. I've been promising myself I would finish that, and it's like I haven't even moved an inch since the last time we talked about it. So there's been a lot going on in the world that just didn't make me want to watch it, honestly. But I can go on about how I'm doing. It's not that good. Nothing really that bad. It's just not good. But Dom, how are you doing?
I'm okay. We are in a bit of like weather extremes right now here in Chicagoland, and I feel like I always talk about the weather on the opening of this show, mostly because one. We should get you a green screen, and your Zoom background should just be the weather. But it's either because we talk about interesting stuff in the green room, and then we realize, oh yeah, we have a podcast. And two, my work is like at least half outside, so it's like it dominates my life 100%. I can't just ignore it. So it's all right. It's all right. But other than that, it's a long, hot summer for sure. And there's all sorts of interesting things happening in the city.
Dude, I remember when I used to work at the Park District, and yeah, like a big factor of that job as well was being outside. And as much as it's nice to be outside while working, you do realize shit, working in long slacks and nice, because I have to dress nice for work and everything, and doing this while I'm outside, I'm like, this is terrible. I hate this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it'll probably be a short show tonight, unless if Dom and I end up taking up the whole hour to talk about 28 Years Later. I see us maybe doing 45 minutes max on this, because I do have quite a bit to say.
45 minutes later?
45 minutes. Good one. 45 minutes later. Oh, shit. It's such a good...
he's tired, because he's really enjoying that one.
No, honestly, yeah. I dude, because what was it? My room is the hottest room in the house. So I've been having a lot of... This show is called Sleepless. Shit, I've been having sleepless nights. I'm right at home with the title of this fucking show. I'll tell you that. Nice. So anyways, let's get right into it. Before I get started though, Dom, did you have a chance to actually watch 28 Days Later and possibly 28 Weeks Later? Not that it matters for this movie, but did you get a chance to watch either of those?
Not recently, not like in a rewatch in anticipation, no. But I have watched both. I remember watching 28 Days as a kid, and that terrified me. And it was like, the concept of a zombie has always been slow, but 28 Days Later was the dawn, or at least the popularization of the fast zombie, or rather an infected, like a Left 4 Dead. I mean, Left 4 Dead straight up stole the idea for their game from 28 Days Later, which is great because it's a fantastic game. But
and I know people for the few people that might be watching or even watching the YouTube highlight later, they're gonna be like, actually, it's not a zombie movie. It's actually an infection called the Rage virus. Yeah, we know it's called the Rage virus. They're not actually zombies. It's just more of an infection.
What? In 28 years, so a guy says zombie. So you know what? Confirm.
Yeah, there you go. 28 Days Later, man, that was probably one of the first rated R movies that I saw in theaters. It was that, and Blood Diamond, I think, was another one for me when I was a kid.
Mm-hmm.
My uncles would just sneak me into ones every so often. They didn't take me. No, it was Final Destination 3, then I think 28 Days Later, and then Blood Diamond. I would go see these movies from time to time with them, and of course all three movies that were rated R were like the most extreme cases of rated R. Like Final Destination, people getting brutally killed. 28 Days Later, it's just a terrifying horror experience. And then you have Blood Diamond, which is just like this really gritty look at like, you know, the diamond, like, you know, business in Africa where they like enslave children and like take people away from their homes and everything. That freaked me out. But now we're actually, you know, we're let's see. I think 28 Days Later was 2002. Yeah, so we're like well over 20 years since the first installment of this franchise.
I'm kind of upset that they skipped 28 months later because I was like, damn, you could have, but apparently, according to a Polygon article that I read, they said that, you know what? We have prequel potential. It's back in the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
So maybe, and I hope they do it. But regardless, yeah.
I'm cool if they don't do it, and if they do,
Sure.
you know, just, you know, it'll be cool actually to see like how much the world has changed. 28 months later, which would be technically what, like 2.5 years then. So, but with this movie, unlike 28 Weeks Later, which wasn't directed by Danny Boyle and not written by Alex Garland, this film is actually them reuniting since they've done 28 Days Later, which it had me excited from the get-go when I heard that it's like, okay, we're getting the original team back together. And now you have Danny Boyle, who's gone off and made a ton of films, from Trainspotting 2, what was Slumdog Millionaire, and then you have Garland, who started his own directorial career with Ex Machina. We just saw Civil War last year. There's gonna be a Civil War. No, I'm just kidding. But now, yeah, they've reunited to do 28 years later. The film stars a very small but very extremely talented cast. Jodie Comer, Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ralph Fiennes, and a newcomer, his first role ever, which you can see on the screen right now, which is I almost said the wrong actor name. Hold on a minute, let me make sure I pull this up correctly.
He's like top billing.
Yeah, he's not actually on IMDb. They don't list him top billing, but right here, the guy, the kid running next to Aaron Taylor Johnson here, his name is Alfie Williams. I believe that's how you pronounce his name. Sure. His name is Spike in the movie. This is his first role ever. We'll be talking about that, I'm sure, throughout the review, about his performance in the movie. And the movie's basically about, Spike is basically he lives on this, like, colony island, in the UK. And basically this colony island has, like, this, like, stone bridge that's very disconnected from the rest of the UK. So that way, infected can't really get to them and everything, because a tide will come, like, at times during the day and just basically wash out infected, also wash out the path that people take every morning and kind of hide it underneath water. But him and his father, played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, his name is Jamie, they go out one morning, and it's basically kind of like, for him to be proven that he can be a man in their society, he has to go out and basically get his first kill, so he can prove, you know, to be useful in the village and everything down the line. But back at home, things are a little rough. His mother, Jodie Comer, played by her character name is Isla. She's homesick, and, you know, after coming home from his first adventure, he realizes his mother's condition is getting worse and worse, and he takes it upon himself to go across the UK to try and find a doctor that is rumored to still be out there in the UK, just staying alive, and possibly can help treat his mother. And that's all I really want to give away about the story. The less you know about this, the better. In fact, I wish I didn't have to say anything about Jodie Comer, but I feel like talking about her performance, as well as that character's relationship to Spike, and vice versa with the dad and with Aaron Taylor Johnson, is essential to this review, because the marketing for this movie, as far as I know, they didn't show Jodie Comer. That was like a whole surprise and everything. It was like the entire time, like, you know, and this is infamous when it comes to Danny Boyle movies. Danny Boyle is very much known for making a film about one thing, and it seems like it's like gonna be that, and all of a sudden he switches up about halfway through. A lot of people like attribute 28 Days Later. It's like, hey, it's a zombie film, and then it actually has like a whole message and a whole thing about toxic masculinity. You know, the second half of the movie, and it's like, he often does that with a lot of his films. That's why, you know, he's a filmmaker I enjoy seeing, because it's like he always keeps you on your toes when you're watching his movies. And this film does the exact same thing too. That first act, and we'll go more into this indeed. I know I've been previewing that up. I'm gonna toss it off to Dom in just a second to get his opening thoughts, and then we can bounce around throughout the film. But the first act is very much like Last of Us or Walking Dead light, where it's like they're doing what we've seen in like those games, movies, TV shows, where it's just like they're going about introducing this apocalyptic land, what it's like there, and everything. And you're feeling bad for Spike going on this adventure that he does not seem ready for and everything. And his dad's just trying to man him up, like, hey, you gotta be ready to do this and everything. But where the film goes, the second half, is very different. And I'm just gonna say this, and I'll pass it off to Dom. The trailers to this movie are misleading. Whether you think that's a bad thing or not is up to you, but I'm gonna tell you this right now. The movie you think you're gonna get, this zombie apocalypse and everything, that is the first 30 minutes, and then the rest of this film is basically a very, very, like, heartfelt family drama throughout the rest of the movie. Now, there are zombies and infected that still show up throughout this, and there are some really gory kills, but you're going to be spending a lot of time where moments are quiet, it's a mother and son talking, and it's building up to a third act that's probably going to gut punch you, like it did for me. But before I go any further, Dom, what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah, real quick, while I talk, Joe, can you actually pull up an image? Sorry to ambush you. Can you pull
No.
Just search 28 years later iPhone rig.
And I already have it.
Okay, good. Yeah. But anyway, this movie I had been actually kind of low-key looking forward to, not ultra hype, but kind of looking forward to, because the first two movies were just, the first one in particular, so influential, not just in the zombie subgenre, but for indie filmmaking overall, because I actually forget, I need to look it up, but I think the 28 days later, I forget how much, of course I don't have it on.
It was cheap. It's surprisingly cheap. I think it's I think it's almost,
okay, a budget of 8 million.
Yeah, I was about to say it's under 10.
Is that indie? No, not quite. And but still, it's cheap, comparatively so, for an epic of that size, for something that culturally significant.
Yeah.
And you can see the indie stylings shine through for Danny Boyle in that sense. And it's a return to form. It absolutely is. 28 months later, I enjoyed it. I enjoyed 28 months later. Thank you very much. 28 weeks later, I very much enjoyed it. Thank you. But it was done by a different film, by a different director, Juan Carlos Fresnadillo. And it was, but it definitely did not feel like a Danny Boyle film. It did not have those stylings. This feels like, so I'm gonna admit here, I have not watched Trainspotting. I'm sorry.
No, it's fine.
But it does. What he does, Boyle does in 28 years later, are those kinds of cuts, those kinds of stylings. You know exactly what I'm talking about. I don't even need to describe it. Do those show up in his other films, particularly like Trainspotting or his other stuff?
It's been a long time. I haven't seen Trainspotting 2 as well, but it's been a long time since I've seen Trainspotting. Okay. He doesn't do it in Slumdog. So I can't really confirm if it's like a style of his, but it seems to be like a flair he just added into 28 Days Later and then expanded on it with Years Later.
Yeah, 100%. And you know what? Those flourishes, and by that I mean, like, we're talking slow motion, we're talking some very, very janky cuts, but not in a bad way. They're used effectively for emotional or dramatic effect. It's very concerted. It's very much a director using tools in their toolkit, and I appreciate that. And that adds all the spices that make all the difference in what can be a very straightforward film, because we've seen stuff like this before, like The Road, right?
That was another film I was like trying to remember. Yeah. I'm like, what the hell else did this remind me of?
Yeah, how many apocalypse movies have we seen where it's a very, very small cast and they're just kind of going through a devastated countryside? A lot of them. And I enjoy a lot of them. But what puts 28 days or 28 years apart, it is a lot of those flourishes. It's a lot of this. Oh my God. I'm going to mention them now before I forget. The soundtrack to this is incredible.
Oh, it's a damn good one.
Holy shit. This is Oscar worthy for me, man. Just in what they do with it. Shout out to Young Fathers, which is a DJ hip hop collective here. I believe it's got 3 members. and they are Scottish. They're Scottish, and it's
And
such a
they
cool
worked with
soundtrack.
they worked with Boyle already in Train Spotting too.
Okay, great. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. Like that because the soundtrack and the rest of the film here blend so well together. Honestly, you saw a lot of that stuff. They weren't in 28 Days, of course, but you saw a lot of that industrial, kind of,
New
you
metal.
know, new metal kind of stuff in 28
Yeah.
Days. And here in 28 Years, it's a little more electronic, which makes sense because it's of the time of 2025. And it's so engaging and it's so
Yeah.
unique that you just don't see. I like I it honestly gives off vibes of Left 4 Dead, which I'm gonna keep dropping. I'm gonna keep dropping because these two things are so intertwined.
It reminded me of Nine Inch Nails, and then eventually what like Trent Reznor and Atticus Ross ended up doing later in their careers, which is like doing the soundtrack for The Social Network, Challengers,
Yeah.
Soul. It's like eventually they took like a little bit of that sound, but they got more electronic with it when it came time to do composing.
Please, shout out to Young Fathers, the
Yeah,
group,
they were
because this
great.
is their first movie soundtrack, I believe. Man, what a hit! What a absolute hit out of the park. So very much engaging, and I just we never talk enough about soundtracks and composers and film scores on this show, which I understand because we're just so busy. But man, it's a really good one. But as for the rest of the movie, yeah, Joe, as you said, there is a kind of a road film aspect to this, and it can feel like different movies at times, and it does. But I'm okay with that because I think the first film was that too, and it provided such a and it was such a good blueprint of it. The
Yeah,
acts were so clearly defined. Short of putting in a title card that says Act Two, no, you feel it here, and it's a progression. And
yeah,
and I was concerned at first that maybe things might get too slow with the opening parts. I'm like, oh no, am I going in a predictable direction? Are we going to have another outbreak in a populated area? But no, it didn't go that direction. It stayed focused. And I'm so happy about this. It stayed focused to its emotional core, which is a coming of age story for a child, for a
yeah,
boy. And that's what it is. That's what even the flourishes, the stylings are alluding to, are all paying homage to. It's not just random, it's all intertwined. So for instance, the at many times Boyle cuts to seemingly well, not random, but cuts to other footage of tangentially, but not tangentially, but allusions to other things. So, for instance, when the Spike, the child, is going off into the infected countryside to become a man, it cuts to film footage of World War I, World War II soldiers marching out into the war and stuff like that. When you see the townspeople, doing bow and arrow stuff, it cuts to like medieval
yeah.
footage from like golden age Hollywood stuff. And that's really, really cool that it all ties back to this emotional core of the father, the son, the mother, the letting go of certain of these stages of your life under harsh circumstances. That is the core of it all. And I'm so glad for it because this thing could have tried to be. I mean, and look, at this point I trust Boyle to do whatever he wants with whatever. Maybe not a Beatles movie. I think you could have done better with Yesterday. But in terms, I could have done a
Look, I
lot better with
forgot he
Yesterday.
made that. You're right.
I want to forget that he made that. It wasn't terrible, but it could have been a lot better.
I want to live
But
in the world where the fucking movie never existed.
yeah. No, but for me, I'm glad that this movie had an emotional core. I think I think 28 Weeks Later had an emotional core too,
The
which was
characters, yeah, the characters in 28 Weeks Later aren't as strong as Days or even Years here.
yeah.
That's why that emotional core, you don't really feel it too much with that one.
Yeah. Because in 28 weeks, if I remember correctly, the emotional story is one about abandonment. Because
Yes.
it's about the husband abandoning his wife and everyone else in order to save his own skin.
Yeah.
And you watch that opening scene and it's like, I kind of get it, dude. Everyone was kind of screwed. I can't lie. I think everyone was screwed in that one. But they're returning to that. it stays close to that theme. I forget, what was the big emotional thing in 28 Days, or was that more of a traditional zombie movie where it's just exploring the devastation?
It's on Freevee, and I felt like rewatching it this weekend too, along with Andor, because I'm like, well, if it's for free, I might as well. All I remember is, like, because the last time I watched this was in high school, where we analyzed the movie in my high school media class, and we talked about how, like, it starts out, yeah, like that traditional zombie movie, but then, like, it switches over into, like, you know, like I said earlier, a commentary on toxic masculinity with some of the characters that pop up later in the film, and it's just, like, you know, how that, like, you know, comes to be. So
yeah, I think for me, basically 28 years definitely hitting for me on the emotional front, and even in the filmmaking front. I don't know, did you show the picture yet that
no, I was waiting for you to kind of like tear it up though, but yeah, no, filmmaking wise, talk about, and this film, this is one of those movies you're gonna see it's been shot on an iPhone, but it's not like the person was just holding an iPhone in their hands the entire time. No, if you're looking at this rig right now, you can see, like, there's a lot of iPhones on this rig, but also they have a lot of enhancements on them. They have lenses on top of that as well.
Yeah, and they're basically just doing a Matrix.
Yeah,
because that's basically what they did, but with DSLR camera or mirrorless. But either way, full on snapshot cameras. Whereas this one, they just did it with iPhones. Which, hey, you know what? It's of the time. It's pretty cool, and I very much enjoy. Like I said, those flourishes were so much fun.
And you know what? I gotta say, this and Sinners, you know, you have the two spectrums here. You have one film that was shot on film, and you have the other film that was shot on iPhones. This and Sinners are the most beautiful looking movies I've seen this year. There's that amazing shot where Spike and his dad are walking back to their camp, and the sky is lit up with stars, and you can see like the nova and space and everything. Because, you know, there's not that much pollution being used anymore, so the sky's much clearer. You can see so much detail of space. And the water below them is reflecting it, and it just looks so beautiful. I was like starstruck, no pun intended, looking at that scene. I was like, wow, man. I'm like, this is amazing. I will say, like, I did that editing you were talking about. I was with it 50-50. I felt like it kind of overstayed its welcome. It did it too much in that first act, because then they just abandoned it later on in the film.
They kind of do.
When it was doing the World War I, World War II things, I was like, okay, I get what you're doing here. But when it started, cutting to, like, old film footage of, like, previous movies of, like, people pulling out bows, I'm like, okay, I get what you're trying to do still, but I'm like, I think
it's
this is, like...
It's a taste thing. Yeah,
I think this is a bit reaching for it. Personally, I'm going to say this. I've seen people complain, and you were kind of hinting at this, I've been seeing people complain that this movie doesn't know what it wants to be, and that it switches up what it wants to be and everything. I didn't mind that with this movie like you did. I actually think this movie works better the longer it goes on.
It blends together so well. That's the thing,
and it does too. Yeah, like the stories that, like, I mean, it's one story the entire time. It's just, I've seen a lot of people, because people know that this is gonna be a trilogy, that a lot of people are like, oh, but you could tell they're setting up for the next movie here, and it's like, that was not going through my head at all while watching this movie, except for one part. We'll touch on that, I'm sure. But sure. Ralph Fiennes' character is in the next one. I think it's more solely focused on his character. But, like, he felt so natural when he comes into this movie. It's not like, you know, Avengers character shows up in Thor the Dark World, or, you know, they pop up in Spider-Man. It doesn't feel like that. It just felt like this character was introduced in this movie, and, like, you know, the whole objective is to get to this character. So it just felt natural that he got there. But I haven't seen complaints online where people are saying, like, his character didn't fit because it just feels like it's just building up to the next movie. I didn't feel that way at all.
What? There's such a clearly defined, like, beginning and end of this arc.
And I've seen people complain that, like, you know, the film doesn't know what it wants to be. It keeps switching up its themes throughout. I'm like, I didn't feel that at all either. Those are the people who think this is a zombie movie completely and nothing else. And they don't have the emotional capacity to realize that this is about the stages of a boy's adolescence growing up. And I find that like allows people who said that did have the notion of, I love the first act, but the rest of the movie I felt like got boring, got dull, it didn't keep my attention. And I'm just like, yeah, you wanted the movie that was the first act. I'm gonna be honest with you. I thought the first act was just okay. I mean, I was enjoying the performances of Aaron Taylor Johnson and Alfie Williams, but I was kind of sitting there going, okay, I mean, if the movie's just going to be The Last of Us, The Road, and everything, that's fine. I was just hoping, 20 years later, we were going to get, a much more personal movie or a much more, like, emotional, like, hitting movie. And then where this movie goes, I was like, now this is what I thought it was going to be. And the longer it went on, I was loving it more and more.
Honestly, I think that first act where they're hunting, or they're trying to get their first kill, going out into the world for the first time, that was
great world building. Don't get me wrong.
Perfect timing. I think that was paced perfectly for what it was, and didn't overstay its welcome. I was not left wanting more. It was exactly what it needed to be to set up for the true emotional core of this movie, which is the mother. And and that I'm like, I am shocked that for a zombie movie, particularly one of this cultural, phenomenon, I am genuinely shocked that that is the emotional story. That is the story that we got, the plot and the emotional core that we got.
And a lot of people say too, like, Spike's whole switch up, like it just comes out of nowhere. I'm just like, again, like, knowing that, like, he felt more compassion for his mom. He put on the bravery because it was like, look, this is a life or death situation for my mom. I gotta do this. Like, I'm trying to make her feel better. I feel like that's actually what turned him. What he does with his mother turns. Never mind. That's actually getting into spoiler territory. I was about to say the ending to the movie right there because of how much.
Changing it up. How did you feel about the evolution of the infected here, in the sense that?
Oh, I loved it.
We got some crazy stuff, and we got the alpha is one of the big changes here. And for me, when it comes to traditional zombie movies, I actually don't like a lot of the crazy shit. I'm more of a Romero guy, where it's like, and even Romero changed things up by Day of the Dead, right?
Yeah.
But like, for me, Dawn of the Dead is like perfect.
Yeah.
In the sense that
I love that one. That's probably my favorite essential zombie movie.
I like the core zombie, and like they're slow, like Walking Dead.
Yeah.
Well, it's like, okay, I like that. I like these very clear, consistent rules, and you don't get crazy shit. Which is why I didn't like the Dawn of the Dead remake with what's his name?
Zack Snyder.
I did not enjoy that one. I think, and I have a whole rant about that, which I won't go into.
I feel the same way about Army of the Dead, because like I feel like what he does with those zombies is a bit similar. Here's the thing. I'll say this. I was cool with it in this movie because it felt like a natural evolution after how many years
I like
it's been.
infected. Let me say, if you say, oh, they're infected and they're fast zombies, at that point I'm like, do whatever. You're good. Go for it.
I was on board with the evolution here because of it felt more natural. They did a lot better world building with it compared to Army of the Dead, where the alpha in this movie is just a bigger zombie. That's all it is. It's just a bigger zombie, and it leads a pack of zombies. That's all it really is. It's just like, it moves the fastest. The other zombies see that and kind of just follow it. Yeah. It's a little bit smarter. Yeah, that too. Compared to
28 inches later,
dude, I kept seeing that comment online. I was laughing my ass off. There's been a whole trend of people being like, me getting chased by the zombies in 28 years later, and someone was like running away from the camera, and they went.
No, hey, no joke though. This movie had the balls to show naked zombies, and I appreciate that, because they would absolutely be buck-ass naked, especially 28 years later.
Oh yeah, clothes are gone, dude. They're gonna keep on them jeans, or they're like, no matter how stable, like, or like good durable your Levi jeans are, they're gonna be gone. Okay, but. What was I saying? Oh, compared to Army of the Dead, where I thought it was silly when it's like, that's the alpha and his queen, and they're literally dressed up like king and queens, like wearing a crown made of bones and everything. I'm like, okay, now this is just stupid, all right? Like, here it feels more like natural. It feels like it's actually part of like that, like ecology. I think is like the word I'm trying to think of here. That ecosystem of zombies or infected. It felt more like, okay, yeah, and even the bloated ones too. Like, all those, like, felt natural. I gotta say, there is something they do with the zombie later on in the movie that I've seen people say they really loved and thought it was bold. I thought was one of the weaker parts of the movie. At first, I was like, "Oh, I really like what you're doing here." Again, it's something unfortunately we can't really talk about, but the longer I thought about it, it takes place on a train. I will give you the hint. The longer I thought about it, the more I was like, wait, yeah, as much as like that was like a bold thing to do, the longer I think about it, I'm like, that doesn't make any sense actually. Wait, hold on.
Really
like, you know, I'm just like, and it leads to such like a throwaway line. If anything, I felt like, okay, if there's any sequel baiting, it's this and maybe the last 2 minutes, but the rest of the movie I was like cool with.
The thing happens and a character goes, okay, we have to like get rid of all of this, and I'm like, yeah, I think I agree. I think I'm with you, dude. Like you're kind of a piece of shit, but like I'm with you on that one.
Yeah, it's just like that's not normal.
And it sucked. It actually kind of sucks that will probably be like the sore point for all the effing online movie heads that are small details in
all I
completely ignore that this was a pretty damn enjoyable, good movie.
All I thought was like the nerdy friends that I would talk to from time to time about movies that like lost their mind over The Last Jedi. Like, I just thought, like, while I was watching that scene, like, I can just only imagine they'd be losing their mind because, like, this is going against everything they know about zombies. And it's just like, hey, look, that's a bold decision. I'm not for it, but I'm not... It's not ruining the experience for me at all. It's not even, like... It's not... Does it take it down a peg? A little, because it made me just kind of... It takes me out a little bit, but it didn't ruin anything for me. Before we go to break, though, I do want to start the ball rolling on this. Can we talk about Alfie Williams' breakout performance in this movie and how I think this kid, his breakout first performance is on the same wavelength as Haley Steinfeld's in True Grit, the kids in the Florida Project, and I mean I'm trying to think of one more like of the like Oscar nominated like young actors we've had. And I'm not saying this kid's probably not going to get nominated for an Oscar. I think it would be cool if he did, because this kid, this isn't like a Stranger Things kid. This isn't like a Goonies kid. Like, don't get me wrong. I love the Stranger Things kids, but they're just they fit those characters that they play, that very well. Alfie Williams here playing Spike goes through a wide range of emotions. Not only that, he is acting against veteran actors who have been doing this longer than he's been alive, like Aaron Taylor Johnson, Ralph Fiennes. Like, these people have been doing this for so long. And Jodie Comer, who is fairly new to the acting game as well, but, like, has won an Emmy for her role on Killing Eve, was in one of my favorite movies from previous years, The Last Duel. And it's just like, this kid is holding his own and is acting his ass off. And eventually has to lead the movie. And it puts the movie on his shoulders and it has to, like, take charge with it. What about you? Yeah.
Yeah, 100%. I don't know if this is Oscar worthy, but the fact that we're even like saying that already says a lot, because he so much is on his shoulder. It's a tough thing with child actors particularly, because it's like, well, first of all, you can't blame them for anything. You really can't. That's a directing thing. That's a casting thing. But something about it is like, you either got it or you don't. You either like their use in the movie, their how they are used as an actor in the movie. It's either I look at them and I go, yeah, they've got it, or it's not quite so. And there's hardly any room for it. I'm glad to say that for Alfie Williams, he's definitely got it. I think he's going places, and he carries a lot of this movie on his shoulders. Yeah.
And I hate to say this, but that's why I bring up the comparisons to like when Haley Steinfeld did True Grit when she was like 12, or the kids in the Florida Project, because it's just like, I look at those performances and they were breakout performances for these kids where it's like, it secured their place as actors. They're going to be getting roles later. And I hate to say this, but there's kids on Stranger Things that, like, once they get older, they're not getting work anymore because they got that role because they were a cute kid and it fit them. I love the character Dustin on Stranger Things, but I know when he gets older, he's not going to get the roles he's getting. I hope he does. I hope he gets to continue working. I don't want anybody to lose their gig, but like, knowing how Hollywood is, that's just what happens. Look what happened to.
Do you remember Eli Coltrane from
Yes.
Boyhood?
Yes.
Yeah, man. It sucks because it's like, well, first of all, it sucks because he was, he's in that movie for like 15 years or whatever.
Yeah.
But then we all saw The Circle, and it's like, I don't think he's got it. I don't think he's got it.
It was just like, oh damn. But like, hey, K.U. Kwan or oh my god, I think I'm pronouncing his name. Like, you know, it's like after he did Goonies and Temple of Doom, it was like he didn't really get too many roles after that. And then like he grew up and he wasn't the cute kid that like, you know, a lot of people knew him by.
He's
and
a special case because he reinvented himself.
But that's the other thing though.
But like he grew up. He was out, grew up, and then jumped back in.
Yeah, but I more attribute that though to the directors of Everything Everywhere All at Once being like, yeah, we'll take you in, because it's like 100%. Again, I don't think if he would have gotten that role, we would have never seen him in Loki season 2, so on and so forth. We're gonna take a quick non-sponsored intermission by Zoom. Keep it right here on Sleepless with Steve.
Looking forward to when you do make that announcement, my friend. That'll be a good time on the show. I'll give you the floor probably to start the show on that one.
Yeah,
but. Inside Out 2, the long-awaited sequel to Pixar's movie Inside Out, which I remember vividly seeing in theaters back in 2015. I remember, and it didn't dawn on me. Catherine and I rewatched the first one last week before the new one came out, and I saw that movie early. They actually had an advanced screening thing for it at AMC, and I saw that movie early, and it was a packed house. It was packed. I think it was sold out, and I remember that movie just being inspiring to watch and seeing the reactions of people all like laughing consistently. Like
back and better than ever without Steve. He'll be back next week.
Sounds horrible.
I know. I was just like, ouch. He'll be back next week though. I unfortunately won't be here. So man, how long has it been since we actually had a full cast show?
We were going to, but then I had to back out. So
no, he wasn't here last week. Last week was just like me and you again.
It's like a month, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, because we did Dangerous Animals, and then we didn't do last week. Which, by the way, Materialist. God, man, I wish you guys did see that, because I need to talk to people about that movie. Like,
we can line it up. Is there a what's a movie coming up that we don't?
I doubt it's gonna. We'll have to wait till it comes to video, because I doubt it's gonna be in theaters any longer with the stacked of movies July is.
Hey, Voodoo, man, it's time for Voodoo.
There you go. I gotta talk to people about this movie, because it's like, I feel like I'm in agreement with the vast majority.
Thumbs up, thumbs down.
Dude, I don't know.
Oh shit!
Like,
oh shit!
That's why, like, I left the theater, and I was like, this is the most confused I've felt about a movie in a long time. Like, I gave it a letterbox rating, and then I'm like, no, hold on, I'm gonna take that away. I don't actually feel confident about that review. Like, I'm
actually glad we didn't do that this week. I'm glad. I'll wait for it until.
No, I am too, because I'm glad we did review this, and everything. But anyways, let's get back to the main subject at hand. We can talk about The Materialist when the time comes.
Yeah, let's talk about Pedro Pascal's Vanity Fair shoot.
Yes,
absolutely
oh my God.
serving.
What an
absolutely
ass. Serving. Oh my God. Anyways, going back to 28 years later, we were talking about Alfie Williams' performance and how much of a standout breakout it is. And just like, you know, where we think like, you know, eventually this will lead down the line. And he's in the next film as well. The next film, by the way, is being directed by Nia DaCosta, the person who did the remake of Candyman. She directed that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so that is the next person. Garland did write the script for it, so Garland is still attached to it in some ways. And they haven't announced anything about the third and final installment to this trilogy at the very least. Nothing about who's writing, starring, or directing. But the next one, do you know when the next one's coming out?
I think next year, right?
Yeah, January 2026. It's right around the corner.
Shit.
This is like some Matrix like level of like, you know, it's just like they shot these back to back is what they did. So like
they shot them back to back, but they only did, but they have different directors.
Yeah.
I'm a little disappointed. I mean, I don't.
I am a little let down that it could have been Boyle as well, but from what I understood, it was basically they shot this first, and when this was said and done, DaCosta basically came in and I think basically worked with like the same crew essentially, and then just took the new cast members for the new film and returning ones from this film.
Oh, okay.
So I do know like that third film, they are talking about bringing back another character. I won't say who. But they're from a previous installment of 28 Days. Oh, well, there you go. They're from the 28 Days.
Cillian Murphy, the guy.
Cillian Murphy, yeah. Oppenheimer's coming back.
He was in the trailer. He was in the trailer for 28 years. I was waiting for him the whole time.
So, yeah, I'm curious to see where this goes and everything. The only thing that has me a little bit worried is, like, this is such a good first installment that's like, okay, but you already, like, set up a trilogy, and it's like, don't stretch this out longer than it has to be. And we'll go into like a critique that I have later on, which involves the film's ending. And speaking of other performances, do you have anything else you want to add on to Alfie, or do you want to talk about anybody else?
Other than Ralph Fiennes, Rafe Fiennes, he's such a treat, man.
Oh my god, man, you're not kidding, dude.
What a breath of fresh air in this. What a breath of fresh air. What an exciting new actor. I've never heard of him before. No, like for this movie, he was like Zen.
Yeah,
that dude was so contrasting with everything else we know about 28 Days.
Yeah,
about the world of 28 Days, right?
I was talking to a friend of mine. I said there are two people in this movie, three people actually, that I felt like you cannot like. They did the best they could, and it's like I can't really see anybody else do that performance as good as they did. I think Alfie as Spike. I think like it's like I really can't think of a child actor unless if you find another like unknown actor first role and everything. Mm-hmm. Jodie Comer as the mother, and then Rafe. See, I don't know if it's Ralph Fiennes or Ray Fiennes, but Mr. Fiennes.
I think it's Ray Fiennes. I think it's Ray Fiennes. I don't think
okay, yeah.
L. Steve would be able to correct us.
Yeah, he would. He probably is right now watching the show from wherever he's at. His cadence, his voice is why that character, I think, also works as well as it does. I mean, it's written very well. His performance is great, but just because of how he sounds, it adds what that character is so much, dude, and it adds so much more to that performance.
Yeah. And it was one of those things where I was looking at it and I'm like, oh man, is this just, are we just inserting famous names into this former indie movie? No, not at all. Not at all. That was such a treat. It was, like I said, Zen, which is not something you think about when you're thinking 28 days later. That's insane to me. Go ahead.
You see, like in the trailer, like you see when he pops up, and it's like he's surrounded by all these skulls, and you're like, oh Jesus Christ, what is his deal? But when you get to that point in the movie and you learn everything about it, you're like, oh my god. I'm like, this is actually like the complete opposite of what I thought this was gonna be. And it really is. It's a breath of fresh air. It's so refreshing to see something like that be done in a zombie movie. Because like, when you think of like, it's been years and the zombies have been around, it's like, okay, now you're getting to the Mad Max situation of this, where it's just people are roaming around this wasteland and they're just monsters. They are the new monsters. Mm-hmm. It's not even the zombies you should be worried about, it's the humans. But it's like, oh my god, this is so nice.
Yeah, I'm a little tired of the humans are the real monsters trope, where it's like,
you're going to do that so much.
I think it's the zombies, guys. But for this, like, but that contrasting sense again, I'm still going crazy over this. A 28 Days Later movie where it's fast turbocharged zombies, right? And where, oh my god, that scene of that alpha chasing Aaron Taylor Johnson and
his son, and
and in the no, like down the water.
Yeah.
That's final run. Oh, dude, that is the sound design, the pounding of the alpha on the foot on the ground.
Yeah.
So good.
And dude, it's terrifying too, because it's like, as humans, we feel the weight of water on our skin and it slows us down. Yeah. That thing's just dead. That thing doesn't feel pain. That thing's just running. That thing looks like it's running on water, not through it.
Yeah. But no, other than that, do you want to talk about this ending?
Yeah, we'll get into that, and I think I can give my final rating, and I'll be good to go.
Yeah. We won't go into detail. I mean, there's not really much to spoil, but more so just like how we feel about it. Yeah.
I'll say this. I have only a few complaints about this movie, but this is a big one. The movie had me in tears towards the end, I should say. Mm-hmm. I actually did tear up in the theater. I thought it was a beautiful message about life and everything, and to put it in a zombie movie too, I'm like, how fitting and everything. And I'm wiping the tears away from my eyes, and I'm thinking, okay, this is such a good spot to end it. And then a character pops up. And not just one, it's not just him. Then, like, the Power Rangers show up, and, like, it becomes, like, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, it becomes Power Rangers, it becomes a Saturday morning cartoon. And I remember just sitting there in the theater, And like down, I'm literally like this, and I froze, and like my hands just slowly went away from my face, and I thought like, did I cry so hard I passed out and woke up in like a different movie? Like it's just like the attendant just left me here, like it kind of undermined the emotional impact I was having leaving the movie. Like it was like, oh my gosh, this is so. What the fuck is that? It's like, because, and I've seen people defend it, and it's like,
I'm about to defend it.
Oh shit! Okay, I've seen people defend
a
it.
little bit.
I've seen people defend it, because it does deal with the cold opening of the movie, and they tied it back.
That's not really
to
an excuse. Yeah.
and it's not even that, but like they brought up that like, oh, this is why they act like this. Again, it sucks that I'll tell you in the green room when we're done with the show.
Yeah.
But also it was like, oh, this is also a reference to a popular icon of Britain and everything. And I'm like, yeah, I don't fucking care. Like it's just like this kind of just made me go like, what the hell is this? And not only that, the characters basically, and this is the only time I felt like, okay, now you're sequel baiting here. That character is essentially one of the main characters for the next film. And I went, all right, well, I wish they would have done like what Sinners did, where it's like I got the credits basically, but then there was like a continuation. I think that would have worked better.
Because for me, here's the thing. For me, it was such a what the fuck at the end. But honestly, it worked because for me, I can separate that.
Okay.
I can separate that. I got the close of this 2025 movie. I was like, okay, we're done. That was the emotional endpoint. We're good. And then that happens. And I was also confused and perplexed. And then I'm like, nah, this kind of fucks. This kind of works for me. And the thing is, it's like, again, I need to watch 28 Days Later. I don't think they do anything that insane.
No, they don't. They don't.
They don't. But something about the energy of it kind of harkens back.
Yeah.
To that first movie in a way I can't. It sounds like I understand it might be a stretch for me to say that, and even I admit that. But for me, it feels like it was harkening back to the first movie somehow. And and I'm like, yeah, you took the boldest swing possible on that, and it kind of hit for me. It kind of worked. It kind of worked.
It unfortunately, it didn't ruin it for me. Don't get me wrong, because I've seen people say I've seen people say I love this movie until the last 2 minutes, then I hated it. I'm like, all right, look, I can separate 2 minutes. I can separate 2 minutes out of a movie. All right, like
because like I said, they closed it out like they closed that arc of the whole film so damn well that from here we're like extra innings. We're like New Game Plus. This is nuts. This is crazy, dude. I want to see the whole movie again, but with these dudes joining them.
Other than
when you
that,
get all
though,
the upgraded companions at the start of the game.
Other than that, though, I'm gonna give my final thoughts. Do you have anything else you want to add in?
No, I'm good, man.
Okay. Other than that, I think this is what I could have. This is what I was hoping for, a return to form. Not return to form, but just a return to this franchise that Boyle and Garland were gonna bring, man. This gave me everything I was hoping for and then some. There are a few ideas they throw around that I'm not on board with the entire time, but its main focus, its main plot, and what this movie is all about, basically by the end, is what works so damn well that I ended up loving this movie. I've seen a lot. I'm surprised this movie is gotten as much of a mixed reaction as possible. And for all I know, it could just be the people who don't like it are being louder than the people who do. But like for me, this is one of my favorites of the year, and I want to rewatch it at some point too. This potentially could be a 4-star movie for me. I don't know.
Wow.
For right now, it is 3.5 out of 4 stars. I feel like I need to rewatch it. Maybe give it another chance with like the aspects I was kind of iffy on and the ideas they brought up. But in terms of just like its main story, the characters, the performances, the look of it, it's some of Boyle's best filmmaking he's done since, I would say, like early on in his career, when like he did like stuff like Slumdog Millionaire, Trainspotting, and everything. It feels like, you know, he really felt. It's great to see. It's like George Miller coming back to the wasteland with Mad Max. It really felt like this guy actually had something. He had a vision. He really knew how to do something creative, and not only did he like come back and like just wanted to tell the story and everything. No, he came back and he did something new with filmmaking involving these iPhones and how that was all shot and everything. So yeah, it is 3.5 out of 4 stars for me. I really did love this movie.
Yeah, this is a solid 3.5 out of 4 stars for me. I was so concerned that, not concerned, but more so like there was that worry in the back of my mind. It's like, oh man, this is kind of a legacy sequel thing going on here.
I was worried about that too.
Long. Are we gonna break the and like, so for some people they lost it at 28 weeks later. No, I it's not as good as the first one, but I enjoyed it, and I think it's a worthy successor.
I think it's the weakest, but that doesn't mean it's bad.
Yes, I concur. Of these three, the middle installment is the weakest, but there's still some really cool things in that middle in that movie. But for me, this is such a great surprise. Not surprise, but more so. I'll tell you what. The thing that puts it over the top for me is yes, I keep saying the word emotional, but man, that is the big hit out of the park for me. That this story was about a boy coming of age in so many ways, not just surviving, making a man out of himself, but particularly, dealing with his emotions with family and what happens to his family, and that all the closure he has to go through and during all these times of great distress. That's an eternal message that will make this movie timeless, if not already the closing scene where you had the tracksuit mafia making this a timeless film. No, yeah, man, this is a very, very good movie that I think everyone should watch, especially if you're pining nostalgic for those I almost want to say masterpiece of a movie, that first one, because it was such a
it really is.
It was like a train hitting you right in the face. Like, god damn, I'd never seen anything like it.
It's one of those movies that's like, I don't consider it to be just like one of the best zombie movies ever made. No, I consider it to be like one of the best movies ever made, especially of like, everybody's been doing that New York Times thing of the the best
top 10
21st century movies. It's like, honestly, the longer I think about it, I'm like, I really should have thrown 28 Days on there.
Yeah man. Woo.
All right. Anyways,
miss Steve for this one, but
yeah, honestly, I texted Steve after I got out of the theater. I gave him like a little bit of a heads up about like the messaging of the movie and like what the themes are. I was like, hey, I'm like, I don't know if you plan on
I thought
seeing
about
it,
him too. I thought about him too,
dude. Yeah, Steve, if you're watching, dude, like, you saw my text. I'm just warning you as you go in. Like, it might hit home really hard. Like, I went into a bit more detail than I want to, like, about, not that, I didn't give him, like, everything about the ending, but I was just like, hey, just a heads up. Next week on the docket, oh, damn, I wish I was here for this one. Damn. You guys are going to be reviewing Megan 2.0.
Oh, you want to take my spot?
I wish I could, dude. You want to take my spot at work?
Oh, my God.
You just got to sit there and say no to all the ideas, like, that this, this committee wants to give you. No, yeah, next week is Megan 2.0. All jokes aside, I don't know if that committee member is watching this. I'm just joking, by the way. It's just the more, dark side of humor I have from time to time. Megan 2.0 is next week. Before anybody even asks, like, if we're reviewing any of the big movies of July, we're not. Steve is purposely avoiding every big movie in July. No Jurassic, no Superman, no Fantastic Four. You're getting F1. What's up?
Okay, F1, yeah.
F1, Mountain Head, and I Know What You Did Last Summer, and Happy Gilmore 2.
Of them, the only one I'll probably watch on my own without you guys, like, doing anything with you guys, is probably Superman, just to see where we go post Snyder.
Yeah.
Or like I mean, we already know kind of, but
I'm seeing
what he does with the big man himself, with Superman.
I'm seeing all three.
Okay.
Because I gotta know.
Yeah,
what
you effing Redditor. Like,
I gotta know. I gotta know what the hell they're gonna do with this Jurassic Park movie, man. Like, God. I'm just like, I'm like, really, Rebirth? Okay. No, if you would ask me of the three, which one am I excited for? It's probably Superman, because that feels like it has probably the potential to be the best out of all three of those. And then Fantastic Four would probably be the next one after that.
Yeah. I have a weakness for the cultural significance of what Superman means to America. I just do.
You know what? Honestly, we'll wrap this up soon. I swear to God. I feel like if
you gotta get your comic book talk in here. You gotta get your comic book talk.
If there's a time to get Superman, like, not only just right, but also actually like have a Superman movie come out. It's now more than ever, man. It really is. So I'm excited to see what Gunn's is bringing to the board. I'm gonna say it though, if this is a misfire, that's it. DC, we ain't gonna see a DC for a long time. That Batman Part 2, you ain't gonna see that. That's it. I hope you enjoyed Part 1, because that's all you're getting of that too. Because I feel like Zaslav will pull the plug on almost all of this stuff. But anyways, that is the show for tonight. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Dom, for joining me, talking about a great movie like 28 years later. These guys will be back next week to review Megan 2.0. Till then, this has been Sleepless with Steve.